Amazing. And if you want to connect with any of our speakers or organizations, please feel free to check the agenda. I think we sent it out as a blast on Luma, and that has every single person who's speaking today's LinkedIn. So you don't need to dig into the business cards and all these things. Obviously introduce yourselves. Don't just add people and don't message them. Send them a nice message that you met them here at the Green Jobs Pavilion, because all the speakers and organizations who are sponsoring and partnering today have that mindset. They decided to support this event because they believe in all of you. They want to help you out. They're a specific mindset of wanting to nurture the next generation. So don't be shy. Make sure you send them a nice introductory message, and also plug Green Jobs Board, of course. Okay, so for our next session, I'm so excited because it's very relevant to the Q&A that just happened. We're going to be diving into how does one transition into a climate career. I hear this question asked all the time. It was just asked in the last panel, and I'm so excited to welcome some incredible experts to the stage who are folks who have experience with leading and pivoting into climate careers. So can we give them all a round of applause? Thank you so much.
Kate's in the crowd.
Perfect. Okay. Amazing. All right, so to kick us off, I would love for each of you to give us some insight as to who you are and what your green career journey has looked like. Specifically, if you've had any career pivots, would be great for the purposes of this panel.
All right, so I'll start. Hi everyone, Sara Fuentes. Pleasure to be here today. First and foremost, I started off as an educator. I worked with special needs children and at-risk youth. I majored in earlyhood child development with the emphasis to work with special needs children. My first career was working in social services in Santa Clara County. I've been hit, kicked, punched, bit, the whole 9 yards. And those would like to say I have a lot of tolerance for BS. I then went into financial services. I learned how to make my money make me money. Anybody like money in the room? Only Nina. Nina likes money. Thank you, Nina. Anybody like money in the room? All right, we got some more fans of money. So I went into financial services, and what I learned in financial services was what I did not like about business. I learned that the financial service industry was a cutthroat industry. It was male populated, and when you work in a male populated industry that does not have the same values as you will notice. Then I decided to take a risk and be a mom, and that was the biggest joy of my life, is being a mother of Princeton Intia Sosar, who's now 16 years old. And I started my company, Smart Waste. I'm the founder of Smart Waste. I like to talk trash. That's what I do for a living all day long. SMART stands for Save Money and Reduce Trash. That's our objective for the commercial and public sector. That's what I do for a living. But what I do for fun is I'm the leader and the chairwoman of an international nonprofit called Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability. Anybody in the room have heard of Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability? So we have some hands in the air. Why I say I do this for fun, and it will be part of some of the things that we talk about today, which is helping women achieve gender parity, helping women and men in the green economy, and as well as looking for thought leaders and supporting climate action in our local communities where our members live and stay. So that's my intro. Thank you for having me. I'm going to pass it to Kate.
Hi everyone, good morning. Happy SF Climate Week. I'm impressed that all of you are awake and have so much energy. Testament to Kristy and her team for organizing such an incredible event. My name is Katie Callens. I lead sustainability at Adobe, and I think anyone who works in this space that tells you that their career hasn't had many twists and turns is lying. So if you are at a pivot point or you're trying to figure out how to navigate, just know you're in really good company. We've all been there. I started my career on the policy side. I studied natural resource management and environmental policy and had the great fortune of going to DC and working at the Environmental Protection Agency, which felt like a dream job, and it wasn't. And so I then jumped to what I thought I might want to do, which was the science. Okay, I did the policy, but I want to get closer to the science. And was doing field work up on Mount Tam, and figured out that the salmon don't really talk back. And I need to have more discourse with my coworkers. And so the fieldwork career also, which had felt like the right choice, I was like, okay, what do I pivot to next? And got a job working at Google, helping to build their healthy materials program on their green building team. And the reason I even was considered for that job was because I came from the EPA. Some of my soon-to-be bosses were like, oh, right, environmental health, healthy materials, buildings. I didn't necessarily make all those connections. I just wanted to understand what the private sector was, having done a lot of water policy work, nonprofit work. I kind of wanted to understand the trifecta to then see the private sector. And so I was lucky they took a chance on me, and I was thrust into the world of green building, of which I knew nothing. And I was on a team with architects and engineers, and people were using so many acronyms that I'd never heard before. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this is where I'm supposed to be. But then I got my lead AP, and I got more comfortable with it. And what I was able to learn in that job was, while I love the world of corporate sustainability, real estate wasn't where I thrived. I was really excited to learn about business strategy. And so I went to business school. I went to Holt International School of Business. Shout out to the SF campus. And I got to study with students from 50 different countries and learned that cross-cultural communications is quite similar to advocating for sustainability across different business units, right? The same way that you're gonna get a project through maybe in the cloud organization or the facilities organization is not so dissimilar to working with folks from different backgrounds and with different aims. Part of the reason I say I went to business school is because I'd been hanging out with a bunch of tree huggers, and I needed to meet some real capitalists if I was going to keep advocating for this work. And so from Holt, I did some consulting with BSR. I think from business school, you're often told, okay, and now you become a consultant as a next step. Also found wasn't for me. I really like getting to be inside organizations, build long-term relationships, build longer projects. And I mention all these pivots because at certain points for all of them, I felt lost. Quite frankly, I felt like maybe I've made the wrong choice, but what I was able to keep doing again and again was to rely on my network. Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability were definitely a part of that journey, but also keep betting on myself, which I think can be a really hard thing to do in these moments. And so from consulting, I was like, I miss being in-house. I went to Facebook, and then they became Meta, and now I'm at Adobe. And with every pivot, I've gotten to know a bit better where I'm able to thrive. And I do not think I would be where I was if I hadn't had all those opportunities and made what some people would call a mistake. But actually, I learned so much about what I didn't want to do and where I wasn't going to have the most impact. And so I'm actually really grateful that many of those jobs didn't work out, and excited to be here with all of you.
Amazing. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name's Alyssa Pace. I'm the head of marketing and communications with Sway. We're a material science company. Oh, thanks, Kristy. We're a material science company. We're based in Emeryville, and we're creating home compostable materials made with seaweed. How did I get here? I am not a material scientist, I will tell you that. But what I am a big fan of is seaweed. Do we have any seaweed enthusiasts in the room? Hey, nice. Let's see, my climate journey started when I went to UCSB. I know we have some gauchos in the room. We have some UC alum, maybe some UC students in the room. I did environmental studies, which is such an amazing program to be part of. I always say it's the best major I could have possibly been in. You learn about everything. You learn about history, you learn about policy, you learn about science. But what I was feeling as I was going through the major is that I was becoming a bit of a generalist, learning about everything, but not totally becoming an expert in anything. Does that resonate for anyone in the room? Yeah, I feel you. What I did do as I was in school was add on a minor. I added on a writing minor at UCSB. And at the time, I was not thinking super seriously about this, but that was the best decision I could have made in my climate career. I did a writing minor with an emphasis on multimedia writing, and that is where I learned the hard skills that I now use every day as a marketer and a communicator. That's where I learned how to use Photoshop, where I learned to build a website, where I learned to write a blog. These were the skills that helped propel me into an internship that really fueled the rest of my career. So back in 2017, I was a senior, I was graduating, I had this environmental studies degree about to happen, I had this writing minor about to happen, and I got an internship at a marketing agency. I knew nothing about marketing. I was like, I could be a writer for Nat Geo, that would be cool. But this is where I got placed for my internship with the minor. And it was through that marketing agency, which really specialized in environmental kinds of customers, environmental and social impact clients, that I got exposure to so many different kinds of companies and so many different kinds of industries. And again, I was using those hard skills that I had learned in this everyday work. So through my first career, I got to work with the California Native Plant Society, with Planned Parenthood, with the Regenerative Organic Alliance, with All Good, which is a natural body skincare company, working with nonprofits and government agencies and product companies, again, helped build my resume and create all of this relevant experience that when I came across my dream job, Sway, which was a startup that was getting off of the ground in 2020 amid a global pandemic where single-use plastic was everywhere, I could say, oh, great, y'all are working at the intersection of ocean health, regenerative agriculture, and aquaculture. I've been there. I know those spaces. Here's what I've done in the past that's relevant to that space. Material science, I know nothing about, but I am willing to learn and look at all of this work that I've done to prove how much I've learned. And what I didn't add about that journey too is that there was a lot of hustle and a lot of grind to even get into that first job. The internship, unpaid. I was also doing a fellowship at Save the Bay, maybe y'all know it, it's very close by, unpaid. And then for my little bit of income that I had when I was 22, fresh out of college 10 years ago, I was a hostess at Comal in Berkeley, maybe you guys know that place as well. So there was a lot of hustle, a lot of grind, a lot of hours worked every day.
Totally, and I appreciate you being really honest about that, because I think when it comes to pivoting into a climate career, you'll probably hear this theme a lot. It's not always seamless. It's not hard. That's why we have a conference focused on it, because it's not easy. And I want to dive more into that. I know that you really kind of opened the floor to talk about skill sets, but I'd love to have both of you also dive into that. What are some of the skill sets that you think were really critical that allowed you to do all of these career pivots to get to the position you're in today?
So I majored in earlyhood child development, which was studying human behavior and child behavior. So I'm going to say that I learned how to observe from a non-biased perspective, and it really plays in for me at Smart Waste. When I work with a company, a commercial business, I'm first observing the culture of the company before I come in to tell them how they need to change. So also I get the buy-in. When you're a teacher, you get the buy-in of your student. Like you saw me today, how many of you like money? And I saw one person, then I challenge you again. So I do that in everything that I do. So that skill that I learned through observation, and all of us have the skill. All of us have the skill of observation. The only thing, the difference between me and you is that I learned how to hone in on this skill. I went to class for this skill, and I learned how to document the skill. So that skill transferred over to every single career that I am in. Even as a leader, and as a daughter, and as a mother, it is still a skill that I use because I have to listen to my son. So, and what I mean is that it's a choice that I do that, right? It's a choice. The second skill that I'm still working on is something that Alyssa mentioned, which is communication. Communication and written communication. I struggled with English. I had a tutor, and there's no shame to that. I had a tutor, so in a skill that I struggled with, I'm forthcoming about that. I'm forthcoming about the areas that I struggle in. I don't look at it as a weakness. So a lot of times, us as women, we hide from it. I don't. I put it out on the forefront. I say, if you want to talk to me, call me on the phone. Text me. Please, if you email me, you're going to get an out-of-office email reply. Because I'm in the field. Most of us that talk to me, you usually get a phone call with me in the car because I'm in the field. When you're in the trash business, you spend 80% of the time out in the field. So I lean in those areas, and I'm forthcoming about the things that I'm really good at, and I'm also transparent about the areas that I'm not going to change about myself. And I think that's really, really important for people that work with you. So if you want people to work with you, you have to tell people what you're really good at, and also transparent about the things that you're learning to get good at. So those are my two major things.
Those are great. +1 to both of those. Yeah, I think in the space there's a barrage of technical skills that you can get, and I have the corporate sustainability lens, so there's so many different reporting frameworks, there's all this new regulation, and when I came into my job at Adobe, I'd done some reporting, but I actually hadn't done the extent of what my job was supposed to entail, which was updating our science-based targets. And it can be really scary to go into a job and say, I don't know, or I'm still learning this. But what I was grateful for was I had another person on my team who did have the deep technical expertise. And so we were able to partner, and I was able to learn from her as well as to upskill in other ways. And so I do think there is such a strong learning curve. The feeling sometimes can be, I need to be very proficient in all of these different spaces in order to get a foot in the door. But actually knowing yourself and knowing what skills you are able to bring to the organization will help them understand how you're going to complement. So another example of this is where I do thrive is in building communications, and also threading the needle of how sustainability can be woven into an entire organization. And to give a specific example, last night we had the pleasure of having Kristy join us for an event at Adobe called Creativity as a Climate Catalyst, because within the organization I've seen that we are a creativity company, but people are not always understanding how that relates to sustainability, how that relates to climate. So one of my jobs is to translate, and is to start to understand, okay, we have incredible creators like Kristy, as well as nonprofit partners like Nat Geo and Conservation International, using our tools every day from climate communications. We need to be screaming this from the rooftops. And a lot of people in the organization don't even know. And so a big part of my work also, which I imagine both of you think about as well, is how can sometimes I describe my job as an internal community organizer, trying to advocate for sustainability within lots of parts of the company who don't necessarily always see the overlap, but building those relationships, whether that's finding out their favorite snack and just leaving it on their desk sometimes, doesn't hurt, especially in person, a little easier in person, but just to help make those connections with folks, because especially when you're building relationships within a company or even with peer companies, I think it's important to remember that you're coming to them with an ask often, right? Budget, you need some support on this thing. They already have a laundry list of to-dos. So how can you come to them from a space of partnership? How can you come to them with an understanding of what their goals and objectives are, and marry that with what the work that you're doing, and then it turns into a win-win.
Can I add something on? I love where this conversation is heading, and I love that there's an element of self-reflection in this work. You gotta know yourself, you gotta know what you're good at, you gotta know what you can bring to the table, as well as understanding what's your highest and greatest use. Where can you be? What can happen? So I see that there's a lot of note takers in the room, and I would assign you a little homework after this, which there's this concept of the climate Venn diagram. Maybe you've heard of it. It comes from the Japanese concept Ikigai. It's been translated through Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, the Queen, through the climate lens, but it's thinking about these 3 circles of a Venn diagram, and you think, what jobs need to be done in climate and justice solutions? What am I good at? What skills can I bring to the table? And then what brings me joy? What do I love doing? What's gonna make me happy every day? And through that lens, you can work to find where that highest and best use for you as an individual is, and encourage everyone in this room to keep reflecting on that.
I love that. So this is a question for Sara. I know that you mentor and support just so many people, especially folks who maybe don't define themselves as climate people or don't feel like they have the climate experience to stand out. What is some practical advice to get some green on their resume? Let's say they have some skill sets, but it has nothing to do with like climate specifically. Should they get a certification? Should they volunteer at an organization? Obviously, those are some suggestions. But if there's anything else you'd want to add that maybe could give them a leg up on their resume.
So when I first started in the waste and recycling industry, I had 0 experience. They called me a greenie. And the owner of the company literally threw me out into the field day 1. And I did not know how to what organics was. I didn't know what mixed recycling was. And so the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because if I would have waited till I had experience, then I would have never gotten the experience. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that being that I was a teacher, I'm always learning, and I'm a constant learner. And I think that one thing that we think we always need to learn or get a new certificate, but I also believe that there's people in this room that we can learn the skills from and then tell people and show people what we're doing, and you can start your own project. So I really love autonomy and people that are autonomous, because you're not depending on anyone else to give you permission. So that was my thing, is like, I didn't want anybody to give me permission. I don't like being told no, so maybe that's why. But you brought up volunteering. And Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability is 100% ran by volunteers. We have 25,000 women in our network, and we've been in a nonprofit organization for 15 years before supporting DEI was popular. And we're still doing it even after it's not popular and it got canceled, right? So making a definitive decision about what you're gonna do regardless of what everyone else around you and the skills that you wanna learn and put out into the world. So I'm just gonna say 2 things about, first and foremost, have autonomy. We have agency to do projects in climate on our own. And then when you are out pursuing your career, you're able to say, look what I did on this project, and look at the work that I've done with Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability. I've seen Kate do everything that she talked about with Google and with Adobe because of our network. I would have never been able to have the privilege of observing her in her career if it wasn't for a network of women and men in the green economy. So it really is around the network and the like-mindedness of the people, and then you yourself taking agency. Because nobody's gonna advocate for your passion more than you. And nobody's gonna advocate about your value more than you. And so I think that's really, really important. We all think that someone's gonna come find us. No one's gonna come find you unless you're speaking up and saying, here I am.
Well, that's a great segue, because I have a great question for Alyssa on this. I was told by your team at Sway that you wrote an incredible email to get the position that you're currently in today. And I want to talk about that, because I think you talked about the grind and the hustle and the moxie that you need, and you kind of have to take some risks. And I want to talk about, working at a climate startup and getting to work in these industries that are very emergent, like things that Sway is doing, I think that's a great opportunity for career pivoters to be thinking about, because getting into so many emergent climate tech startups, they're looking for new talent. They're looking for folks with transferable skill sets that can do their marketing, that can think about, how they're doing data analysis, how they're, even doing cross-sector collaboration. And, you guys work at the intersection of climate, material science, oceans, blue jobs, all of these things. And so I want to talk a little bit more on a twofold part. If you could share how you went about pitching yourself, and how would someone, if they in this room wanted to position themselves as a career pivoter, someone starting out in the field, and then the second part is, what's the benefit of maybe going for a startup in this regard as a career pivoter?
So, like I said, I found Sway in 2020. The company was just getting off of the ground. There was no product yet. It was just like a website saying seaweed can be an ingredient for plastic replacements. And I found Sway like many people do now through Instagram, which was funny because the founder had just put $5 behind an ad, and who's this gonna attract? It was me. And so I see that, and I just was so drawn in. It felt like this perfect convergence of my passions. I felt passionate. It's now this inside joke between me and Julia, the founder. I wrote an email to team@swaythefuture.com saying something along the lines of your products are my passion and your brand is my dream, because the brand that Julia had built was beautiful. And I guess it came off strong in a good way. And anyways, it was just a memorable email, I think, that showed how passionate I was about the solutions that were being built. And I think it showed some of my personality through there. And also at the time, this was such a tiny startup. I think that Julia, seeing that I was sharing the connections I had, I was sharing the experience I had, and that really spoke to her as okay, this person can help accelerate this future that I'm trying to build. They're already aligned. She knows what's going on. This is going to be an easy way to plug this person into what we're doing. We hired a community and content coordinator last year, kind of like a right hand to me, and I can say that the process was, I know it's brutal for people who are applying. It's also pretty brutal to be on the other side of that, to be trying to make an instant judgment about people from what can be a very flat process, right? There's hundreds of applications to go through, and I know that's discouraging in a way, but at the same time, it is an opportunity to really, remove the AI, remove the flatness, remove that from what you're doing, and make your portfolio, your resume, your letters be something that stands out. As for getting into the world of startups, yeah, it's interesting because we're all doing very different things. You're hearing from 3 very different categories of work. Startups are hard, as there are every category, but there's a lot of pivots, a lot of challenges. You've got to be super flexible. Startups are seeded with a dream, right? A vision, and they might not even have a product yet. That's where I came in with Sway, pre-product. You make a product, you're like, this is great. And then you realize all of the shortcomings and you're like, we gotta do it again. And then it's just a cycle of doing that over and over to really perfect the process. Flexibility is key, adaptability is key, being able to wear a lot of hats, and really just being down for whatever any day may bring is the world that we're living in startup land.
No, I love that. And, to summarize the thoughts here, because there's a lot of good stuff here, I think in general, if you're someone who is a career pivoter and wanting to enter this industry, I think there's so many people out there that want to help you out. I think it's important to, do your ikigai, put together your categories of the types of jobs and industries you want to be in, and who are those ideal people. You see the work they're doing and you're like, wait, the work you're doing is really cool. That can give you a hint of maybe where you want to pivot into, and just ask them, how do I get your job? Not exactly your job, but that career path, right? Because that'll give you some hints on, hey, maybe this is the type of skill set, or maybe that job didn't even exist 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and now it does. And maybe they're actually going to build a team. And it's worth asking those questions to understand how a company or an organization is scaling. What is the opportunities for growth? What's the career ladder? These are all things that are also, an unnecessary but necessary tool in your tool belt you'll need if you're trying to be a pivoter. And so I love this story that, you went for it. You were like, you know what, I'm passionate. I love what this company or this organization is doing, and I'm going to reach out. And I would say that's the biggest call to action I would say from this panel when it comes to career pivoting, is having more conversations with folks that have the position that you want to get to, or at least a bridge point, and start mapping out and actually writing down with diagrams and pictures, what is that role? Where can I get there in 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 years? And then you'll figure out how can you bridge gaps by joining, WCS, supporting, joining events like obviously the Green Jobs Pavilion, other events where you can, again, build out your network and your Rolodex to be like, hey, everyone, this is my North Star of where I want to go or pivot into. Could you introduce me to 3 people who maybe have XYZ skill set or expertise? So I would love if each of you, lightning round really quick, could offer one quick resource or tip that you'd like to give people who are career pivoters today to take away with them.
Well, I was going to hype women in clean tech and sustainability because we used to work together. I helped bring it to the conference to Google when I was there many years ago. But I think that actually, maybe that is my tip, is we all are aware of resourcing in our communities that can lift up the community. So the example is, right, like we had event space at Google. I was starting to meet with WCS, and they were like, we're searching for a space. And so maybe the resources don't have to be money, they can be space, they can be time, and so that can also be an offering as you're building community and as you're thinking through next steps. And I think that creates a really nice synergistic relationship with these people too, rather than the one way of just like, tell me more, I'm trying to understand, which of course you're in that space, but I think you also have skills and resources to offer, and so that's, I guess, my tip.
Thank you, Katie. That makes me feel so good. So my tip for everyone here is I focus on one vertical in the clean tech and sustainability space, which is the waste and recycling. So if someone comes to me and wants to talk about it in depth, I am a waste expert. So my tip to you is really find that one vertical that you are going to champion. That one passion that you are going to own. I know a little bit about a lot in clean tech. I know how to turn the lights on, and I know how to make the water flow, right? But I can tell you about the beginning and end of life of most materials because I'm a waste expert. So my tip to you is be that expert in that vertical, because that is the value that a founder like myself is gonna pay money for. Okay? I'm gonna pay money for somebody that's gonna say, Sara, I'm an expert at this. Confident, sure, and then I'm gonna challenge them. Tell me how you're an expert, right? So that's my main thing, because women in clean tech and sustainability is very broad. It covers all the spectrum, right? But everyone in our community knows that if you want to talk about material, end of life, you come and talk to me. If you want to talk about renewable energy, you talk to Bloom Energy. So we understand that, and that's the thing about you, of building yourself as somebody that wants a career in the green economy. Then what expert are you? And that's what is everyone that's gonna hire you, they're gonna know. I know Katie's expertise in building organizations and connecting, and I've seen her do it time and time again, so it's easy for me to talk about. Okay, thank you.
And if you're saying, but Sara, how do I do that? If you're a student, double major, environmental studies, and whatever that skill set is gonna be. If you're a recent grad, do some kind of boot camp, online course, something to really deepen and hone your skills and your environmental knowledge. And if you're a professional trying to figure out where to land, how to transition, volunteer. Just get involved. Look around your local community, see what organizations strike your fancy, and just start showing up for them. You will make connections, you will meet people, just keep talking to people. And find your buddies that you can be with along the way.
Yay, thank you so much. All right, great. All right, hang tight, we're gonna be transitioning into our conservation jobs panel.